Hey guys, John here, and today I'm very excited to share with you guys the infinity method. Now, if you've been following me on my Instagram stories at John, you might have noticed my Instagram stories in late March showing that I rapidly scaled a new account from 0 to 80k per day in just under 5 days. Not only that, but I managed to do so while maintaining a 16x return. And I even gave the method to our video editor Dennis, and he had amazing results with it as well. And that weekend, I not only set new personal records, but I also discovered a completely different way to build and scale dropshipping stores. Now, I should warn you, this method is absolutely not for beginners. You must be a seasoned dropshipper with a healthy bankroll and need to be comfortable with potentially losing a large sum of money. That being said, if you're a beginner and you're just curious, I encourage you to watch the video to see what's possible when it comes to Facebook's machine learning algorithm. Now, you can always come back to this method at a later time when you're ready to give it a shot after you've had some more success in dropshipping. So as promised, in this lesson, I'm going to be revealing the exact method I used to achieve these numbers. I'll start things off by giving you an overview of the method and describing why it works. I'll give you insight into what criteria you need to meet in order for this method to work. Next, I'll talk about the Facebook ad setup. You'll learn how to set up the initial campaign and how to manage your spend going forward based on your initial results. By the time we're done here, you'll have a solid understanding of the method, how it works, and how to execute it yourself. So without further ado, let's jump right in. The Infinity method makes use of Facebook's machine learning algorithm and its preference for broad targeting to scale Shopify stores in record time. If you've watched the lesson on Phase 4 about the endgame, you'll have noticed that once the ad account has sufficient data, it will be able to actually start targeting people on its own without any targeting information from you. Previously, I only thought this was possible if you spend time curating your audience and feeding Facebook the right data. After all, how else would it know what specific group of people it should target if you haven't given Facebook enough data? But then while running some of our other stores, I noticed that the time it took to get from starting a fresh ad account to get to the end game seemed to have gone down a lot. Now, in the past, the endgame scale might not have worked until the ad account spend was at least around $25,000, but in 2020, I was able to get it working much more quickly, oftentimes with as little as 5K total ad account spend. So this got me thinking, what if Facebook is just so good that it doesn't need much guidance anymore? Theoretically, if I could get a product that had broad appeal and broad targeting could at least generate some sales on the first day, the system should be able to narrow down the audience over time and maybe even optimize really well by itself. Though fairly risky, I decided to put this theory to the test, and I picked out a product that had a very broad appeal with potential audiences in the hundreds of millions worldwide. Jumping into the ad account I ran my test in, you'll notice that I started things off with a 5K daily budget, and on the first day it only managed to spend 3K because I just launched it midday. Now, I don't recommend anyone to launch it midday, but as a seasoned pro with little patience, I decided to just risk it. And on top of that, the ad account did get disabled after 7 days without reason, and I'm still trying to recover it to this day. But do not worry, the method itself is still working like a beast, and I'm currently running it on some of my newer stores with a lot of success. Anyways, the initial results were okay. On day 1, we managed to spend $3,000 and hit a ROAS of 2.94. Pretty decent results for day 1. So for day 2, I set up a retargeting campaign on the side and left the campaign running at 5K daily spend. So on day 2, we hit a 5.83 ROAS. The campaign was optimizing without me having to touch anything, and it was interesting to see how the retargeting was performing almost the same as my broad campaign. Now by day 4, we hit a 11.21 ROAS. Now keep in mind this was the ROAS reported by Facebook. On Shopify, the actual ROAS was about a 16. Now every day that went by, the algorithm began to optimize things down more and more, and it looks like Facebook can actually narrow down the audience on its own, giving me the results that interest targeting would never have been able to deliver. Now if this sounds too good to be true, don't worry, it's not. If you did this with just any product or store, you will likely lose thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars before you got any results. Alright, so now that you guys have seen my results, let me go over the exact criteria that you need to meet in order to make this method actually work. Now, this method will only work if you take a very specific approach, meeting a few different criterias. Let's talk a little bit about what you need to do in order to pull this off. So the criterias are as follows. The starting budget. You need an extremely high starting budget, at least $1,000 per day, preferably $2,500 to $5,000. Now, this is a very high risk, high return method. So if you aren't a seasoned dropshipper with a large starting budget, don't try this. 2. The market size. You need a very large potential market size. The product should appeal to a super broad audience. So for example, pop sockets, because literally everyone has a phone and would be willing to buy this product. Number 3, the ad creative. You need to be 100% sure that your ad creative is going to convert. This means that you either use an advertisement that's been tried and tested already, or you look up competitor advertisements that have good performance and replicate their sequence. Number 4, the landing page. You need to make sure that your landing page will convert. This means that either you use an existing store that's converting well already, or you have enough experience to determine what a high converting landing page looks like. This also means that you need to be confident in the pricing of your product. Now, once you can meet these 4 specific criteria, you're ready for the infinity method. Now, don't get upset when I tell you how to set this up, because it's actually so easy that you're going to be blown. This method allows you to work less, make more, and set up in just 5 minutes. The reason why it's so easy to set up and it works so well is because we're utilizing Facebook's machine learning to its fullest capacity. You're basically giving full reign to Facebook to control almost everything, from the targeting to the budget distribution to the placement. If you're not utilizing more machine learning in 2020, then you're working too hard for mediocre results. Going forward in 2020, I encourage everyone to trust the machine learning process more and put less emphasis on micromanaging your campaigns. Let Facebook do all the work for you. Alright, coming back to the setup, it looks like this. You're going to create a CBO campaign with a daily budget of $1,000 plus. I usually start with either $2,500 or $5,000, but it could also work with $1,000. The CBO is going to have 2 ad sets inside of it, each with the same targeting. Select whatever country your audience market is most likely going to be in, but make sure the audience size is at least 100 million plus. So for example, if you're going to just target Italy, your audience size might not reach 100 million plus, in which case you'll have to overlap it with another country. I've personally always selected either USA/Canada, ePacket, or worldwide for my country selection. Now leave your audience targeting blank. You're going to be targeting the country as a broad target. You can opt to exclude dropshipping though. So placements will be auto, purchase conversions, no language restrictions, and that's it for the ad setup. Now for the creative, just dupe the same creative twice per ad set, and that's it. That's the entire setup. I know you guys probably expected some elaborate campaign setup using calculus to compute the interest targeting likely to yield the best results, but the truth is the setup will far outperform anything you've ever seen, better than lookalikes, better than interest, sometimes even better than your retargeting. Now make sure to schedule your campaign to run at 12 a.m. the next day. You also have to make sure your ads are approved by that time so that the campaign can start running exactly at 12 a.m. Now if you don't set up this schedule, then there's a chance Facebook will approve your campaigns at a random time of day, and the pacing will be messed up, meaning you could lose a lot of money on the first day. Though we've talked about scheduling for midnight throughout modules 4 and 5, I can't emphasize it enough for this particular method. Having a broad targeting campaign with no prior history run midday is just begging to have your money thrown down the drain on your first day. So make sure to set up your ads to run the next day. I know I'm not the best example for it because I literally just ran my ads midday, but I was willing to risk $5,000 because I wanted to test my method out as soon as possible. But for you guys, definitely schedule your ads to run the next day, because by not doing that, you have a higher chance of having the campaign fail. Alright, so after your ads have run for a full day, you're going to want to check your results. A key thing to note here is that you should only turn off the campaign on day 1 if you see negative returns. Anything that's break even or higher should be allowed to run for another day. A huge mistake I see a lot of beginners make is turning off their CBOs way too early. They spend a few $100, see horrible results, get scared, and then turn off the CBO. One thing you should know is that with these high budget CBOs, your performance the first half of the day can actually be really horrible. This is true even if the CBO has been running for a few days and has already optimized efficiently. However, I've noticed that later on in the day, after spending about 50 to 70% of your CBO's daily budget, you'll start to see more stabilization and your cost per purchase should improve. In any case, have no fear. As long as you meet the 4 criteria I mentioned earlier, I can assure you that the results will drastically change as the day goes on, and even more drastically as the CBO runs for a few days. Anyways, let's talk about how to interpret your results before you move forward. So if on day 1 you either break even, make a little profit, or do extremely well, then don't turn off the campaign. Your performance will most likely continue to improve, and Facebook should be able to optimize the audience in the coming days. If after a full day of spend you're below your break-even CPP, you're going to want to turn the CBO off and go back to the drawing board. It's very likely that there's something off with one or more of your criterias. Either the market for your product is not broad enough, your creative, your landing page, or your price, they need some sort of adjustment. You'll have to pinpoint what criteria needs work and fix it before you get back to trying the infinity method again. Now, if you make very high profit, like 5 to 8x ROAS, then you can double, even triple the budget for the next day. Most likely though, your results will hold and you should see even further optimization. Alright, at the end of day 2, you'll want to check your results out once more. The campaigns that originally broke even or made a little profit should now be optimized to the point where you're seeing decent, if not great returns. By decent, we're talking at least 2 to 3 times returns. Now, if they still haven't optimized by day 2, you're likely missing something in one of the criteria outlined earlier in this lesson. I would kill the campaign and go back to the drawing board. If on day 2 you get decent or amazing returns, you're basically on track to massive scale. You can double the campaign budget, triple the campaign budget, or whatever max limit your ad account will allow you to hit. This will most certainly work because your audience size is huge, so you can really scale up however much you want. Now, if you can make it past day 2, you're basically at full optimization by day 3, and at this point I would try to max out my ad account daily spend and scale into more ad accounts while waiting for my daily limit to rise. And that's about it when it comes to this strategy, guys. I know it's super simple in terms of setup, but it's extremely hard to execute because you need to be sure and hit all 4 criteria we talked about earlier. It also requires you to be really comfortable with potentially taking on some losses early on. So again, if you're a beginner, do not try this at home. Now, to wrap the video up, let me go over 2 common questions I'm anticipating many of you guys might have. Now, the first question is, should you turn off underperforming ad sets or ads inside the CBO? Now, the answer is no. I never touch the ad sets or ads within my CBO. High spend CBOs will eventually optimize on their own, and underperforming ad sets or ads will stabilize. I find that by touching the ad sets or ads, this interferes with the Facebook algo, and you end up getting worse results than you would have if you just left the CBO as it was. For all the high spend CBOs I've set up in 2020, I've never touched any of the ad sets or ads inside. The only thing I will ever modify is the budget if I'm scaling up or reverting to a previous level of spend. Now, this isn't always the case when I'm running lower budget CBOs, but that's because there's not enough money going into these lower budget CBOs for them to optimize on their own. Alright, so the next question is, why does this method work so well? The method works extremely well because you're not placing any constraints on Facebook's machine learning algorithm, and you're presenting it with an offer that many people will find appealing. As such, it will be able to utilize all of the available data points it has in order to find you the best possible audience, provided you give it enough data. Now, in the past, Facebook used to be all about specific audiences, and going broad was usually a bad idea. But things have been shifting pretty rapidly, and right now broad is king. But in order for broad to work, you need to feed the algorithm a shit ton of data. And with this method, that's exactly what we're giving the algorithm. On day 1, you're telling the algorithm, alright buddy, no constraints, just start hitting audiences that may be interested in the offer, and adjust your targeting throughout the day as the data and purchases come in. And that's exactly what the machine will do. So come day 2, it's already narrowed down your broad size into a slightly more niche size, and by day 3, it's practically locked in on your exact audience. And from day 4 onwards, you'll continue to see steady performance and have the ability to scale as high as your budget will take you because you've given 0 restrictions as to who Facebook is allowed to target. Alright guys, that's about it for the Infinity Method. If you have any questions, make sure to comment in the private Facebook group, and I'll do my best to get back to you guys in a timely fashion. Hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.